Because another way of looking at Sanatana Dharma is that it's yoga.
Mm,
You have five, six darshanas, or if you even include Vyakaran, so
mm,
seven darshanas, and six of them are analysis. The seventh is yoga. Yoga is about
mm.
how to live life.
Right.
So Sanatan Dharma is yoga. And
Mm,
what is the greatest book of yoga? It is the Bhagavad Gita. And yoga is universal. Sanatan Dharma is universal. It's eternal. It is
mm.
Shashvat. Because it's eternal, it doesn't belong to any specific time and space.
That's right.
And it's universal. Everybody
Mm,
is equal in this, no matter which part of the universe we come from, which part of the world we come from. And the Ram Mandir is one of the great symbols of it because it
mm,
transcends all these oppositions in the personhood of the Prince
yeah.
Rama,
Yeah.
right? And the whole world ought to be celebrating it. And in many
Exactly.
ways, there's a great clip which has gone viral on the internet of this German singer
Mm.
singing a bhajan to Rama, and I think
Yes.
that's very
Yes.
appropriate.
Also, for an African couple, I don't know if you've seen this video. There is a video that's going around on social media of, especially on Twitter, of this African. Well, they seem to be dressed in a tribal fashion in some part of Africa. I forget which country, but they're singing and swaying to this very lilting tune dedicated to Lord Ram. So there is a lot of surprisingly from unexpected quarters there is, but then there's also equal amount of clamor about why, and that it kind of represents. I'm sure you're familiar with the articles that have been coming out in Time magazine, and I think there's an article that came out by Audrey Truschke recently, just on this subject. So the proposition being that one is that it represents Hindu supremacy, and the second is, which other lot of other people say, well, the criticism being that do we even need a Ram Mandir? Why a mandir? Why a mandir? So, Subhashji, you've written about in your book, Eternal Bharat, you also talk about it at some length, what the temple is and what it represents and why it is, it has a certain significance, right? So maybe you could talk a little bit about, on the criticism, like what is being said, and then perhaps bring us to what you talk about in your book about the significance of the temple itself, the mandir and its design.
As to the criticism, there are a lot of well-meaning people who don't quite understand what Sanatan Dharma is all about. If you think that Sanatan Dharma is sectarian like other many other tribal traditions, in a tribal tradition, you either belong to the tribe or you don't. If you don't
That's
belong to the tribe, then maybe you ought to be killed. That's what tribal traditions are. Then you're a non-believer, you ought to be killed or you ought to be enslaved. Sanatan Dharma is not a tribal religion. Sanatan Dharma is a wisdom tradition related to every human being. It's a universal tradition. That's why it is Sanatan. That's why it's eternal, right? It doesn't say that, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you worshiping X, Y, or Z? Or why is your personal sadhana or yoga of this kind or that kind? So long as you are within the bounds of morality, because morality is universal. Morality means that you must protect others, you must be respectful to others, which is universal. If this is supremacist, that's a wonderful supremacy. A supremacy of universalism ought to be there. I,
right.
I would embrace it. It's like the supremacy of science. Who wouldn't say that supremacy of science is not a good thing? Because we
Right.
must follow science. So,
Correct.
Sanatan Dharma is science which embraces not only the outer but also the inner. Now, you might say, why do we believe the inner? There is nothing but the inner, there is only the outer. And a lot of people, some people in the West who are searching, don't recognize the inner, and this criticism coming from them can be understandable.
Mm.
But fortunately, something that has happened recently. First of all, if you go back to science, you look at quantum mechanics, which is the deepest physics science that we have. It
Yes.
also recognizes consciousness as the other. Consciousness
Mm.
cannot be reduced to materiality. So there
Mm.
is an inner, right? There is an outer and there is an inner. And
Inner.
Sanatan Dharma speaks of both. Maybe some other traditions don't speak of others, speak of both. They are mainly focused on the outer, do this, do that, and then you go to paradise in your body, or you can imagine that you're
Correct.
going in your body, right? Now, fortunately, just a couple of months ago, I stumbled upon a new theorem which is published in the leading journal in the world that we have on the field. It's called Journal of Artificial Intelligence and Consciousness, where I have been able to show mathematically
Mm.
that consciousness is not material,
It's
which
not
complete is not material. It cannot
material.
be a product of the brain, because that is what the Sanatan Dharma view is. What is Sanatan Dharma view? That Atma is not a part of the body. That is what Krishna teaches, for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, or if you read the Upanishads, right? Atma is the same Atma in every person or every
Yes.
prani, in every living being. Now, the brain is like an instrument, like you have a television receiver or you have your telephone, right? But the image, it does not come from the telephone. The
Mm.
image does not come from the television. The image
Correct.
is all over, right?
That's
So
right.
Atma is all over.
Mm.
And that, so I'm very, very pleased that I've been able to find a mathematical proof for it, which proves Vedanta mathematically, which, of course, if you wanted to follow traditional arguments, you had to go to the Brahma Sutras, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and that's the case that's made in all of those texts. So to come back to what you're saying, I think to accept the supremacy of a universal view of reality, which puts every human being, male or female, of every part, corner of the world, of every culture, including other living beings, on the same pedestal, we should all celebrate it.
That's
I think
right.
that supremacy we should embrace.
Embrace.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.